Welcome to another episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? I'm Karen E. Osborne, your host, and today my guest has had such an extraordinary life, and I just can't wait to dive in and hear all about her. Her name is Helen Treplikov. Did I say that right, Helen?
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. She's had this really extraordinary life. So let me just read a little bit about her here. So she graduated summa cum laude with a master's degree in international economic relations from Moscow State Institute for International Relations. Which was dubbed by Henry Kissinger as the Harvard of Russia. And shortly after she graduated, she followed her husband to New York City and unexpectedly became a stay-at-home mother. And that sort of led to her first book, which she's going to tell us about, Postgraduate Studies in Motherhood, which is her story about her journey from Russia to New York and raising her two young girls. So she's going to tell us about that. And she has a brand new book out, The New Year's Resolution of Greta Baker. And it's a totally different genre, totally different kind of a book. It comes out on October 6th. So I'm going to let her tell you all about that as well. So welcome, Helen.
Thank you very much, Kim. Thank you for having me.
I'm so delighted to have you. So your first book was more like a memoir, right? It was kind of telling your true story. And now your second book is kind of this sci-fi fantasy book. So tell us a little bit about your writing journey. How did you start writing the first one? What was the impetus for the second one? Tell us about it.
Well, first I have to say I have the blessing of my mother. Because after our girls graduated from high school and went to college, I felt very badly, as many parents probably, but I was a stay-at-home mom. I missed them terribly, and I tried to fill this void by something creative, by something that would give me the joy of life that I lost when they left our house. I tried many things. I tried the stock market. I tried architectural degree, and one day I was telling about all this to my mom, and she was listening, and then she said, "Helen, start writing." The blue, just like that, but and I didn't start writing right away, but in a few months, I just read the article about Amy Chua, about her book, The Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother. And it stirred so many emotions in me. I wanted to say something. It was just like a dam broke, and all those fears, all the doubts, all the victories, and all the defeats, everything. I remembered my life with my girls, and those were definitely the best years of my life. And I wanted to share my thoughts with everybody. I just had to do it, and that's how I started working on this book. And my main challenge, in hindsight, was to overcome this difference in world perception. Because the journey from Moscow, Russia to New York, United States, it's not just a 9-hour flight. It's a totally different set of mind, world perception. And I had really to be a few steps ahead of my girls to help them and to guide them and to help them to be successful in America. And so that was the main difficulty. And
How old were they? Helen, sorry to interrupt. How old were the girls when you brought them over?
They were 9 and 6, respectively, when the Soviet Union collapsed. And that's when we kind of, it's like we were living in an aquarium, and all of a sudden the walls broke, and we were, yes, in the open sea, because it was a sheltered life. We were just looking at the outside, and we were not part of it. But then all of a sudden, we were there, and we had to make it on the go, shooting from, from your saddle, kind of. And that was difficult. And I think sharing my experience could be helpful to everybody, because I feel that now the time is when we don't know what, as parents, what to expect. Everything changes so quickly. The technological advances are so fast. Certain occupations disappear, some other appear. In just 5-10 years, it could be a totally different world. And so we are preparing our children for the unexpected. And I think it requires us to be very creative, and for them to be very creative and very open and very flexible and very ready to react promptly. And so it requires a certain attitude. And I was trying to share my ideas, to offer my 2 cents on the subject. And
Yeah. Teaching kids resilience and, as you say, and flexibility. So how did you go from that to a sci-fi?
Exactly. The main outcome of my research was that it's such a difficult field. Raising children is so difficult. There's so many books about it. There's so many books and research on the subject. So I was thinking, what do we need to succeed? We cannot read and know all this. So my first response, or my first idea, was love is the common denominator. As parents, we love our children, and we cannot fail, because love gives insight, patience, and wisdom that parents need to bring up their children kind of correctly or happy and successful. But then I also thought that we take a little bit everything for granted. What if someday it would not be enough, and our love would not be enough? What if the society needed a special kind of labor, more sophisticated, more basically more sophisticated, that parents will not be able to fulfill this, need? It was just a random thought, but it gave me an impulse to write a book, a truly macabre idea that parents do not have the right to raise their children anymore. Because so many parents would complain, oh, it was so tough, it was such a difficult night. Hear that all the time. Oh, my 2-year-old didn't sleep. Oh, my 3-year-old broke everything. Oh, my, I don't know, adolescent did something bad. And I thought, what if we take all this for granted, this huge pleasure of life, basically the biggest pleasure of life, to be a parent and to create a new human being for this world, which is so wonderful and so diverse. So this is how this idea came to be.
Wow. So what if there was a world where parents weren't allowed to keep their children?
Yes, and they raise the children. Yes, instead of.
Yes, that's a scary thought. And so the story is about, you have 2 protagonists, right? 2 young women. Is that right?
Yes, it just kind of, like those cards, 3D cards that kind of pop open. So it just, from this very idea, the single idea, the whole world started to take shape. And I thought, okay, productivity, the increase in productivity demands less and less waste in all the economical fields, and labor too. There should be less waste, and competition is it takes advantage of our strong sides better than, say, slave labor, but it does not. Cooperation is much better than competition because it allows to eliminate waste, because then you're not rejected because you're not good enough. Whatever you have is used. So this kind of an economical structure where everybody cooperates would demand a special kind of, again, it's a hypothetical society.
Yes,
Obviously,
it's a fantasy.
yeah,
Yes.
but just to hold together into this main idea about the raising children. So the society had to raise children. Well, the state had to raise children, but why? Why would it require that? So because children had to be special. In which way should they be special? They should be all facets of their potential had to be used, not to waste anything. And so the state, with the new computer power, the quantum computers that are only appearing now, would allow to see into our makeup, our genetic makeup, and to really glean every possibility, every little kernel of talent that we have, and to use it. And so that's why the state had to do it. But obviously, that is such a tense, a difficult, and revolt-inducing society. There had to be a little valve to let a little bit of steam out. And so the state, after a while, decided that maybe a few parents could be allowed to do it. It won't destroy the system.
A chosen few.
Yes. And so there is a lottery, first of all, and then there is just a tough, fierce competition to win the right. And so these two best friends, and one of them is ambitious, very down to earth, and the other one is very idealistic. And they start to try to win this right. And the book is about the outcome of this fight.
How their friendship was affected. And so that is just so interesting and so unusual. So that's a wonderful, wonderful storyline. Are you working on something now? Are you working on anything now?
Well, I'm considering a mystery. I'm considering a mystery novel because I'm a greatest fan of Agatha Christie, and especially her Mystic, Mr. Quinn series, but all of them, well, actually every novel is, I don't know, I love them all. And so actually every 5 to 10 years, I will read them all because I forget. Yes. So that's the biggest pleasure when the time comes when I don't remember the story and I could read. So I want to try my hand at this genre. So we'll see what comes out of it. But I just have a vague idea, but it's not in the works yet.
It's wonderful. Changing up genres like that is unusual for a writer. So I'm going to be following you and seeing how this all works out. I tried my hand at a mystery. My book that came out last year was my first mystery, Tangled Lies. And it is different. You have to know the ending and then kind of build your way back. You have to know who did it, whereas when one is writing, fantasy or women's fiction, the characters can take us wherever they want, but not in a murder mystery. So I'm very eager to hear about your mystery writing journey. You mentioned Agatha Christie. Is there any other writer that you would recommend to our audience? Anything that you've read recently or?
But I have some old-time favorites that I think are really very, very interesting, and they are a little bit connected with the subject of my second book. It's The Masters by C.P. Snow, just to show how manipulation can give you victory this aspect of the book. And it's really, I loved it when I read it, although it was quite some time ago, but I read it for this book, the second book. I also love the Joan of Arc by Mark Twain. The spunk and the will and the force and the strength of a young girl. So this is, I think, a very good book. And I also like Mary Queen of Scots by Stefan Zweig. I think that's also an interesting read. What is the thought that I like in this particular book is that she was very innocent and not quite prepared for life in a way she had to lead. So what happened maybe at the end is kind of unavoidable. So under this angle, well, that could be an interesting book to read. But anyways, it's Stefan Zweig. I think every book and every novel, every story by him are interesting. Amok, for example, I love this one too. So
that's interesting. So you do think maybe after your murder mystery, you'll try your hand at historical fiction, since you like to read historical fiction?
That was my favorite genre for a long time, but it certainly requires a very extensive research.
Yes, it does. It takes a lot of research. Yeah.
Yes, and you have to be very accurate, obviously, and very meticulous. But it is very, very interesting field, definitely. But
maybe the next one. So I have one final question for you before we say goodbye to everybody. So if you invited me for a glass of wine or a cup of coffee or a cup of tea with one of your protagonists or both of these young women, what do you think the four of us would talk about?
First of all, I think I wouldn't have stopped asking questions. I so want to have a peek at the future. It's the most interesting thing, I guess, about the future, to see how it all works out. I hope it doesn't work out the way it worked out in the novel. I'm pretty sure it will not, but just to see what happened. And I think the protagonists would certainly want to know about being a mother in our time, because this is what they want to do. They want to be traditional mothers. So I'm sure they'll have lots of questions regarding this, maybe a few fashion questions to begin with. But after that, definitely the motherhood. And you know what? I think they would leave our meeting sad, because I feel that our society as it is now is much more interesting than the one that I showed in my book. That I created, yes. And so I'm sure they'll feel that they miss on many things that we have. And yes, that's my...
Yeah, especially if they ask us a lot of questions about motherhood, and then they would see what they were missing.
Yes,
that sounds exactly right. Well, it has just been a pleasure speaking with you, Helen. Thank you so much for joining me. If our viewers wanted to find you on the web, how can they find you? Where could they find you?
I'm still working on my webpage, but my mail is trepelkov@gmail.com, and there's Instagram, and I guess that's it. Yes.
Yes, and you do have a website, I know, because I went and looked at it. So you're still working on that, huh?
Yes, but that's what it is. Yes.
Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. If you are watching it on YouTube, or you're watching it on Facebook, or you're watching it on my website, I hope wherever you're watching it, you'll take a moment and subscribe to that platform so that you can hear about the next the next episode. So I thank you again, all of you, for being with us. I'm Karen E. Osborne, and I hope to see you next time at What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing?